a song for you.
You're listening to Deep Purple Smoke on the Podcast. I will do one episode for each song the band recorded in the studio. However, this is a fan podcast and not band endorsed. It's more of a tribute to their long history, well beyond just the hits, and my way of giving something back to a band that has given so much to me. Let's dig in! Hello and welcome to episode 57 of Deep Purple Smoke on the Podcast. I am your host, Scott Haskin, and we're talking about a really cool bonus track from the Fireball sessions. This was one that I first heard on the anthology, and I'm a bit perplexed because I was trying to think of when that album actually came into my possession. There were a lot of bonus tracks on it, or at least tracks that I hadn't heard before. And I was trying to think about, okay, what season maybe does each track make me think of? And it's kind of varied. Like Shadows and Freedom make me think of the wintertime, whereas Coronarius Redding makes me think of the springtime. And I know I listened to them all many times when I first got it, but I think maybe they started to fall into categories of when I got back into each song because, I was experiencing so much new music, still discovering so much of Deep Purple's catalog, Uriah Heep, so many different things. So I don't know, but I do know that this is one that for me is more of like a winter song. But I also remember listening to it a lot in the spring, like when it was okay to go outside again in Michigan after the majority of the snow had melted away and you actually were wanting to walk outside of the house again. So I don't know, but initially it makes me think of like the winter heading towards Christmas, but that's the whole Fireball album for me. So maybe it's just become associated with that. Anyway, this is a bonus track that did not make it onto the album. Why? I don't know. I feel like I could make a case for this being on the album, but I really don't know what song it should replace. Because remember, on a vinyl, you've only got so much time. It's not like nowadays where you can just throw a ton of songs on a CD or digital downloads. You can do even more. It's pretty unlimited now. I mean, you could make an album 100 tracks if you really wanted to on digital download because there's no time restriction. The time restriction comes into play if you're looking at pressing it on CD or even a vinyl, double vinyl, set of vinyls, whatever it might be. So, I feel like if the album had come out today, this would be on it. I think it's that good of a song. But you know what? Don't take my word for it. Let's actually listen to this song and you guys form your own opinions. Don't let my nostalgia and excitement for it sway you. I think everyone should feel a song the way that they feel it. And as I always think, but don't often say, after this episode is over, my suggestion would be to go and listen to the full song uninterrupted by the sound of my voice and my thoughts. Just check it out in full and see what you think of it yourself, especially if it's one you're not familiar with. It is included on the 25th anniversary of the album. Roger did a good job remixing it and making sure that it was available for us to hear. And I just have to wonder, what other gems there might have been on tape, because they recorded, their practices and stuff. Like there just has to be so much more out there that we'll probably never hear, unfortunately. But fortunately, we did get to hear this one, and here it is, Freedom by Deep Purple. Already, right off the bat, 14 seconds in, I'm feeling a lot of energy. This is a great riff. I love it because it just flows so well. And I've talked so much about how Richie and John just play so fluidly. But this riff it just has a nice feel to it. It's not dun dun dun. There's nothing choppy or staccato about it. It just flows very nicely. So that already is something that's going to make me smile. Then you've got Ian Paice, just full of energy, already with some creative fills. Love that buzz roll going right into Ian singing as we're about to get into the vocals. Just a fun song so far. Already great vocal from Ian. Really exciting story that he's telling, and just the way he's feeling. There's some really cool stuff going on in the background though. The rhythm that Richie's playing, um, Roger's bass is once again very adventurous. I love the creative ideas that he comes up with for how to play bass on a song. So non-standard and always very interesting. If he were a little more up in the mix, I mean, it could almost be a lead instrument, playing rhythm. Ian Pace again, just full of energy. But John Lord, he's a little bit harder to hear over in my right ear. Richie's in my left, and he's playing some really cool stuff for rhythm organ. Like everybody again, just at the top of their game. The other thing too is that it really sounds like it comes from the Fireball session. I think that's part of why it feels so much like it fits on this album, is because it's cohesive with the sound of the rest of the songs that we've been through. Great chorus, just such a natural transition from the verse into the chorus, and really like the way that it just kind of just goes up a notch in the song, and then coming back to the riff. It's weird because it's a bit long of a riff, but it's really like a half repeat, and then the ending is different. And I really like riffs that work that way because it's just too easy to repeat the full riff a couple of times and then go into the song. Like, to make that change at the end, I love that. I really think that that's one of the key points to taking a good song and making it a great song, or a good riff and making it a great riff, because it just goes that extra mile to not copy paste. No more walking or fast talking, no fingers on the whammy high. I'm sure glad I wasn't born a fool, yeah. Someday, baby, you'll be my lady. I know that I won't be long. We ain't got no more misery. Spread the word, I'm living again. Tell the world I'm loving again. Don't you know I feel like giving again? Freedom. It's so interesting to hear the way that Ian Pace played back in the 70s. It's very different from the style that he has nowadays. And we'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to Perfect Strangers. But there are just like fills everywhere in the song. It's like he's like, I got another idea, and just played them. And I love it because it makes the song a little bit more aggressive. It moves it forward a little faster than the tempo because it just stays interesting. You could have a song at a good tempo, but if it's just, real basic, it's not very interesting, and it feels like the song is slower than it really is. But when you've got a song that's just so full of ideas and little bursts of different sounds and different textures, it really makes the song feel shorter than it is, and it makes it feel like it's just moving along much faster. So I love that. Great vocal from Ian Gillan. Looks like some of the words on the internet might be wrong for that verse. I'm not sure exactly what he's saying there, but it doesn't match up to what I was just looking at lyric wise. Obviously, this song was never played live, so I can't go to another version and see what he says, even though he's known for not singing the song exactly as the lyrics are anyway. I mean, he usually takes a lot of liberties live, which, is fine. I think if you're doing things exactly as they are on the album, why don't I just stay home and listen to the album? I love that he does things a little bit differently. And so I great song. Just a great song. If there was somebody who was, say, give me a couple of songs that Deep Purple did. Let me see if I like him, if I'm interested in the band. I feel like this is one that you could give them and then say, oh, you really like that? Yeah, me too. This is one that didn't even make the album. and then be like, okay, I've got to hear this album now because it's just that good. Speaking of being that good, I love this transition, Phil, from Ian Pace going into the piano solo. So I'm going to actually rewind that and play it again so that you can appreciate it on its own. Just such a killer thing. And remember, he's playing like, there's one rack tom, one floor tom. Maybe he had two floor toms at this point, a snare drum and a bass drum, and that's it. That's all he's playing on. When you really think about it, the combination of musicians we're listening to here is absolutely amazing. I mean, every one of them is just so good on their own, and then you put them together on a song like this where it's blues based. Obviously, it's you could just do a simple walking bass line, you could play some root notes, but no, Roger's just very colorful and adventurous. You could play very simple solo, on the organ, backing up just the main riff and maybe doing a couple of little flourishes to set it apart from the main verse behind where the vocals would be. There's so many things that you could do, but these guys just take everything and push it to the limit. I love those last couple hanging high notes that we get from John, and then just that little flourish right before we go into the last verse here. Really nice rhythm organ playing behind that, if you can hear that in your right ear. Nice solid rhythm coming from Richie. I mean, it's just, this band is really working together as a unit, and we're getting a great benefit from it. And let's check out that last verse and see what happens. Sweet baby Jesus, what a killer vocal performance from Ian Gillan. Absolutely amazing. Very similar in a way to the last verse of Bloodsucker when it repeats the first verse and they've got all these effects on it. Obviously different effects here, different feel, different passionate vocal delivery, but really pushing it. He's got some multi-layered vocal tracks in there. I just love the sound of that, the energy of it. It's absolutely fantastic. And the way that he sings it is different from the first verse as well. It's not like he's just repeating the way he sang it. He changes it up a little bit. Love the way that sounds. In fact, I almost like, it's so easy to just focus on the vocals and forget all the other things that are going on behind that. But the band is doing a solid job backing Ian up. Not much left on this one. It's a pretty short song. It's 3:35 in total. We're at 3:14. So let's check out those last 20 seconds of the song. It's a pretty simple ending for such a wild song, but that's okay. I love that little flourish from John at the end. This is just, it's such a powerful song, and one that from the first time I've heard it, I'm like, holy crap, and this didn't make the album. Of course, I was very familiar with Fireball by the time that this song came into my life, but I was so grateful that it did. It is such a killer song. And I hope that you guys enjoyed it as much as I did. Go listen to it in full without me interrupting it and see what you think. Give it a couple of listens if you like. It's worth it. It always makes me smile. Hopefully it'll make you guys smile as well. That will do it for this week, guys. If I've calculated everything properly, it is Friday that you're getting this episode. I hope everybody has a great weekend. You can check out back episodes of the podcast that you may have missed. Check out Uriah Heep Smoke on the podcast. Jeez, it is Friday, isn't it? Check out Uriah Heep, the Magicians podcast. Check out the Haskincast podcast. Check out the Deep Purple podcast. Check out all the other podcasts in the Deep Dive Podcast Network. A bunch of great shows out there. So many of my friends are doing podcasts nowadays. It's getting so hard to keep up with all of them, but there are definitely some great ones out there. You can find that list on the website. Also, guys, I'd love to know if you think that this song should have been on the album, and if so, what song should it have replaced? I know that might be a tough call to make because it's such a solid album, but forget about time, forget about length of the song, because this one's pretty short, so it could replace, I would say, anything on the album as far as time-wise goes. So you don't have to worry about album side, song time total or anything like that. Just what song would you replace it with? If indeed you feel it could have made the album. So I'd be curious to know that. But you guys have a great weekend. We will see you next week for some more Deep Purple Smoke on the podcast. Cheers. Thanks for listening to Deep Purple Smoke on the podcast, a tour of the entire Deep Purple studio recordings. Please remember to give the show a rating on Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening. Leave a comment and tell your friends. I also have a Patreon set up if you'd like to support the show. You can also write to me at smokeonthepodcast@gmail.com. I hope you enjoyed the episode, and thanks for listening.